When it comes to rebuilding in Dynasty, I want all 8 of these players on every single team I can get them on. My first player is Kyler Murray. And look, we've talked about him a lot. Myself, Addison, we've covered Kyler ad nauseum this offseason, it feels like. And I'm probably going to keep doing it. I know Addison's going to do the same. He's 26 years old. He's coming off the board as QB 11 right now. That's just not, that's not where his value should be. Kyler Murray has shown us when fully healthy, he can be a top 5 quarterback. He can be a top 6, top 7 guy. Like, that's where he should be. And I mean, you look at his age and it's just, he's nowhere near the peak of his ability. He is learning, growing, not physically, but mentally. Yes, like we've seen the points per game drop over the last couple of years, right? If you look back to 2020, Kyler averaged 26 points per game. 2021, he averaged 24 points per game. Okay, but 2022, he tears the ACL, still averaged over 20 a game. And then coming back from the ACL in 2023, again, playing a shortened season, not fully healthy, at least from like a fantasy rushing perspective, he averaged 20 points per game still. The floor for Kyler, even in the worst case scenario, is 20 points per game. That is a top 12 quarterback most seasons, if not all seasons. The fact that you're paying low QB1 prices for a guy that is going to put up, at worst, low QB1 performances, that's great. And when you're projecting long-term with Kyler, because that's what we care about in a rebuild, the situation is set up for Kyler to succeed. Not only is he going to be 2 years removed from the ACL tear in 2024, you add Marvin Harrison Jr. You have another season now with an elite tight end in Trey McBride. You have James Conner. You have Trey Benson. So when you look at 2025, all of those pieces are going to remain. This offensive line continues to improve. Kyler's only hopefully going to get healthier. Basically, Kyler's going to have top 5 upside. I mean, 2025 and beyond, like that is his sweet spot. And I'm buying him in redraft. I'm buying him on contenders, and I'm definitely buying him on rebuilders because there is so much room for him to gain value moving forward. Switching gears away from like the proven veteran, I'm going to a rookie. And it's not Caleb Williams. It's not Jaden Daniels. I'm looking at Drake Maye. Drake Maye right now is severely undervalued given the draft capital and just the talent we saw in college. He's 21 years old, coming off the board as QB 18. Over the last 4 seasons, if we look at all of the rookie quarterbacks that have been drafted top 3 in the NFL draft, he is tied for the cheapest July ADP heading into a player's rookie season. If we just look back over the last couple seasons, CJ Stroud in July of 2023 was the QB 16 in startups. Bryce Young was the QB 14. Trevor Lawrence was the QB 7. Zach Wilson was the QB 18. Trey Lance was the QB 10. There is so much room for Drake Maye to improve upon his ADP, and I really feel like he's just down here because the situation he steps into is not great. I don't think anybody's going to look at this Patriots roster, this Patriots offense, their weapons, all of it, and going to say, yes, Drake Maye is set up for success. I don't think he is. But in 2024, if I'm rebuilding, do I really care? Do I really care that Drake Maye doesn't have a perfect wide receiver room? Do I care that he doesn't have an average wide receiver room? No, I don't. Because the whole point here is if Drake Maye flashes talent, and I think he will because I think he's a talented quarterback, he's going to gain value. That's what we care about in rebuilds. You can potentially buy into a quarterback that could be a top 10 guy over the next couple of seasons at probably, hopefully, the cheapest he's going to be for the next 5 to 10 years. So, look, I get that it's scary buying players in poor situations when you're expecting them to gain value because they're not set up to do that. But I think the market is going to be smart about Drake Maye here. He has the draft capital. They've invested a little bit in the wide receiver room. Maybe we get a lot out of Jalen Polk. That's what I'm hoping. But I think we're going to look back and say Drake Maye at QB 18 was just a silly price and we overreacted. Buy the talented player and buy him cheap before he rises in price. Now, getting to the running back position, I think it's weird to see running backs in a rebuild video, but I'm trying to get 2 of each position here. So we're going to look at running backs. I'm going to talk about Tyjae Spears. Now, I said let's buy Tyjae Spears when he was, valued at RB15 before free agency because I didn't expect the Tony Pollard ad. I'm still going to buy Tyjae Spears now that he's dropped in price. He's the RB23 coming off the board, 23 years old, and there is so much room for growth with Tyjae Spears. Starting off with the Tony Pollard thing here, right? There's potential for him to be the 1A by the end of the season, even with Tony Pollard in the backfield. Tony Pollard, 27, going on 28 next season, which again, as a rebuilder, I care more about 2025 than I do 2024. Tyjae Spears has the chance to not only be the 1A, but be the true workhorse back heading into the 2025 season. Tony Pollard coming off of a less than spectacular year, and I think just getting older and older. Tyjae Spears' youth, I think, ultimately is going to win out here. The skill set and the talent is why I'm interested in a potential backup running back for this season. Even last year, alongside Derrick Henry, Tyjae Spears hit benchmarks that I care about tremendously for running backs. He averaged over a 12% target share. That is an enormous piece when you're looking at the upside of a running back. There were 10 running backs to see at least a 14% target share last year. 80% of them were top 24 in points per game, and 50% of them were top 12 on the season. That's the type of ceiling Tyjae Spears has. Now, he's obviously going to need to win the workload, and there is certainly risk here. But given how cheap running backs have gotten, a low-end RB2 price tag in Dynasty is not what it used to be. So Tyjae Spears at that price is absolutely worth the gamble on a rebuilding roster. Now, our other running back here, and you're probably going to notice a bit of a theme here. He's a rookie, and we're going with Marshawn Lloyd. RB 27 off the board, only 22 years old coming out of USC. And look, the appeal immediately, he's a rookie. I obviously care about rookie running backs significantly more in a rebuild. I feel like that's not shocking. First, second year guys, that's where I'm going if I have to pick running backs in a rebuild. And I think Marshawn Lloyd is an interesting one because he gets the day 2 draft capital. I think that's a big piece of this, just like Tyjae Spears did last year as a handcuff. Marshawn Lloyd could be looking at a similar spot next year. Yes, he's behind Josh Jacobs, but Josh Jacobs didn't do a whole lot last year to inspire hope in the future of Josh Jacobs. Now, shifting to the Packers from the Raiders is probably going to help Josh Jacobs. That probably played a large part in his least efficient season of his career by a pretty good margin. I mean, I'm not like a big yards per carry is the truth kind of guy. 3.45 yards per carry for Josh Jacobs last year. I get how bad the offensive line was. Do I think it was that bad? No, because you saw Zamir White have some success in the exact same offense, behind the same offensive line. So I don't know if that was the entire factor, but I do think Josh Jacobs is getting up there. He's getting less efficient, and he's taken on these massive workloads, and I think it's just starting to wear him down. That's where Marshawn Lloyd could come in. This Packers backfield, Matt LaFleur has typically utilized a 2 running back system. So I think you're going to see usage from Lloyd in year 1, regardless of what Josh Jacobs does. But then you look at 2025, right? And if Josh Jacobs really does not perform and earn that contract, Lloyd has a path to be the 1A and this pains me to say, this physically hurts. He has a path to be the 1A in a top 5 Packers offense led by Jordan Love. That is the ceiling here. And if you are just chasing running back talent and running back volume and points, all of that, having a running back in an elite offense is usually a cheat code in fantasy most of the time. So while Marshawn Lloyd may not be the obvious starter this year and may not even be the starter by end of 2024, the path in 2025 and beyond looks much, much better. And the RB27 price tag may look like a massive discount come this time next year. Now into the wide receivers here. The first one, it's Rashee Rice. It's the felon, the criminal. Wide receiver 39 in ADP though. The value is spectacular. Only 23 years old. Again, as a rebuilder, cheap and young. Fantastic. Exactly the 2 of the things I want. I think adding Xavier Worthy, adding Hollywood Brown did not help him from a value perspective. But the fact that there is a looming unknown suspension coming as well, right? Is it 6 games? Is it 8? Is it a full season? We do not know. I still think that suspension is coming in 2024. If it does, I don't care as a rebuilding roster. That's why I think Rashee Rice is so interesting, right? Being able to buy a player that is cheap and talented because you just don't care what they do this year is almost a luxury. Now, unfortunately, that luxury is there because you're not going to win a title, so that sucks. But 2025 and beyond, assuming the suspension is out of the way, Rashee Rice is great. He was a great wide receiver last year. When you look at what he did, right, finished the year with an 18% target share. That's fine, right? Nothing spectacular. But that was on a 61% route participation. That is nothing. That's barely, you're a part-time player. Rashee Rice this season should be a full-time wide receiver playing near 100% of the snaps. That is the expectation when he's on the field, right? Before the bye week last year, he averaged 13 points per game, and that's, again, not running a ton of routes. Back half of the year, post-bye, 17 points per game. That's when he became a full-time player. Now, you may not think that type of production is sustainable when you introduce Xavier Worthy, you introduce Hollywood Brown, right? And that's fair. But at wide receiver 39, there is so much space for him to be better than a wide receiver 4. Like there is a ton of room for you to be wrong on the ceiling and have him still pay off at the current price a year from now. So Rashee Rice is just one of those guys I love as a rebuilder. As a contender, holding him is obviously more difficult because you can't sell for the price you want, and you might not get the production you need to win a title, but as a rebuilder, you're in the perfect spot. And to continue the theme, we're on to a rookie wide receiver. I'm on to Jermaine Burton. Again, 23 years old as a rookie, not my favorite thing to see, but he's off the board as wide receiver 57. That's free. That is a free wide receiver. Wide receiver 5 prices is basically nothing. If you're not familiar with Jermaine Burton, he goes in the 3rd round out of Alabama and lands with the Bengals. And you may see where I'm heading with this, right? The reason I love Jermaine Burton on a rebuild is I don't need a ton of production this season. You just don't. But the expectation in 2025 is T. Higgins is gone. That is at least the way this is trending. He's likely off of this roster. And that means Jermaine Burton, who I think is one of the more underrated wide receivers in this draft class, is going to have a massive opportunity in front of him as the wide receiver 2 for Joe Burrow. And the main reason I think Jermaine Burton is actually going to succeed in that role when hopefully he earns that opportunity is the route running in college was absolutely spectacular. Versus man coverage, 86th percentile win rate. Versus press coverage, 86th percentile win rate. Now versus zone, only 46th%, so he definitely needs to improve in that area. But his ability versus man, versus press on the outside, that is a player that could absolutely dominate, especially if Jamar Chase is living inside and eating up a lot of that zone coverage. Jermaine Burton on the outside could be an absolute nightmare. Now, there are reasons he fell to the 3rd round of the NFL draft if he's this talented, right? Like a lot of us think. There are enormous, massive character concerns. So that's always going to be in the back of your head moving forward. Like, is there something he could do off the field that just takes him out of the NFL? That is, unfortunately, a possibility here. But again, as a rebuilder, you're willing to take on risk, and cheap risk is usually the best kind of risk to acquire, and that is exactly what Jermaine Burton is. To finish up with our 2 tight ends here, I'm not going to go Sam Laporta. I'm not going to say Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, Brock Bowers, like the guys you would expect, because who is that helping? They're expensive. Everybody knows they're good. I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to go to a 2nd-year tight end, but it's Luke Musgrave. It's not even Tucker Kraft, who I think most people would expect to see here right now, given the end of 2023. But Luke Musgrave was the tight end 1 in that offense to start the season, and the only reason Tucker Kraft got in there was injury. Only 23 years old, has the tools and the athleticism that you're looking for in a tight end to potentially move up into that next tier of guys. Because right now he's kind of stuck in the, Cole Kmet range, the guys that are, have upside, are interesting, but don't really have a path. Luke Musgrave, I think, has a path because this Packers offense, as good as it projects to be, does not have a true number 1 wide receiver. If that's the case, that means there is room for a tight end to eat up a massive target share, or at least have the potential to earn a really good target share here. As a rookie, he pulls in 12.7%. Nothing great, but rookie tight ends take a while. They take time. Give him the benefit of the doubt. That's what I'm going to do. And a tight end 17 prices, I mean, that's worth the risk, because the level of athlete that Luke Musgrave is, if things fall into place for him and he stays healthy, Tucker Kraft starts the year on PUP and may not be ready for the start of the year, which could even further, kind of give Luke Musgrave a better stranglehold on that tight end 1 job. All of it could lead to a top 10 tight end. That's the potential here. All the tools, the situation looks fantastic. And 2025 could hopefully be that 3rd year breakout where he really solidifies his role. That's the reason I like Luke Musgrave right now, especially on my rebuilding rosters. And to close us out, we're going to a rookie. And it's Ben Sinnott, right? Like I said, we're not going to do Brock Bowers. It's easy. It's obvious. But out in Washington, there is a role for a tight end that could make some noise as a rookie. Off the board is the tight end 18, so he's a cheap buy-in. He's 22 years old, gets drafted in the second round to the Commanders. He is a well above average athlete, checking in with a 76th percentile speed score, 98th percentile burst score. So again, the best tight ends are typically the athletic ones. He passes that threshold, and he steps into a position where I think this offense does not have a true second option, right? It's Terry McLaurin, who I think is a good wide receiver one. He's not elite. After that, it's wide open. Like, I mean, you have Austin Eckler, you have Jahan Dotson, and maybe, Jaden Daniels runs a ton and he turns into Lamar Jackson, and Ben Sinnott could be the Mark Andrews there. Like, that's not the end of the world, right? As long as he finds the end zone often enough, there's a path there. He has a real chance to be a top 10 tight end in 2024, let alone 2025, right? As you get past the rookie hurdles or the rookie growing pains. So I think he's an interesting one to keep an eye on if you're looking for a rookie tight end not named Brock Bowers.